Hi, I'm Andrea Goeglein, and thank you so much for coming back and visiting for my conversations today. Today, our conversation is as important as any that I will have. I have the honor of having Tansy McNulty with me today, and the work that Tansy is doing, in addition to what she's already accomplished, should impress the living heck out of you. Tansy, as is my tradition, number one, welcome. And number two, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for this opportunity to have a conversation. I love being in the midst of like-minded people, right? People who get it and understand. So I'm Tansy McNulty. Really, to boil it down, I'm just a country girl who is very good at solving complex problems. That's really it.
And now tell everyone the complex problem, and it is a complex problem that you've decided to take on.
Yeah. So I will end, myself and my organization, we will end police violence in the United States by the year 2038.
2038. Oh, that is so you've got less than a 15-year goal.
Yeah. I had 20 years when I started. But now we're less than 15.
Well, I'm going to give you a moment of encouragement because we both live in Las Vegas. And one of the things that my friends charged me with back in 2020 was they sent me a checklist to see how is your law enforcement doing when it comes to social justice, and particularly against African-American men. And I remembered at that time on so many of the things that matter, the initial big steps that you take from body cams, there were like 3 or 4 very top things, and our area had begun to do those things. And I felt at that moment, okay, we started. That feeling feels far away at the moment, but I will tell you that I have had a guest on another medium that I have, my Hey Boss Lady podcast with Christy Atwater. We had a Dr. Hannah Valentine on, and she is a renowned heart transplant specialist out of Stanford. And she challenged, just kind of tongue-in-cheek, in 2010, Stanford to be 50-50 in leadership, not just 50-50 women, but 50-50 in leadership by 2020. And when we interviewed her a year and a half ago, they had already achieved the goal. They achieved it 2 or 3 years prior to 2020.
I believe it.
I will hold that for your work also. So give us a little feel, the name of the organization, why it started, and we'll get to the how everyone can help later in the conversation.
Absolutely. So we started June 13th of 2018. So that's our official establishment date with with the state of Nevada, right?
Yep.
But the vision came 2 years before that.
Okay.
So the summer of 2016, I was pregnant with my oldest son. He's now 5 going on 6. And my husband and I, we went on a baby moon to Bermuda. Bermuda's a beautiful place, by the way. But we disconnected our phones. It was just he and I, our last trip before we became a family of 3.
Yep.
And so we do this, we just turn our phone off, come back. And we got back into the States in July of 2016. And there were 3 murders in a short period of time. That was Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, and a lesser known case of Ronnie Shumpert. And that actually, Ronnie Shumpert actually happened in Mississippi, closer to my hometown.
Okay.
3 Black men, all murdered by police officers, different cities, different jurisdictions, same outcome. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I'm pregnant with a son, a Black son. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you're kind of like, okay, I'm bringing a child into this world who will, occupy spaces like his parents usually occupy, middle class, upper middle class spaces. How am I going to keep him safe? Mm-hmm. What can I do now so that 16 years from now, 20 years from now,
Mhm.
this will be a thing of the past. My child would have to
Right.
research Tamir Rice, he'll have to research Alton Sterling, you have to research George Floyd to even know that it ever happened.
Right.
So I took my training. I come from corporate America. I'm a supply chain. I call myself a recovering supply chain professional. All I did for
Love it.
corporations, all I did
Yep.
for corporations was reduce costs and lean up processes. So all I'm doing now in the social justice, racial justice sphere is the same thing. I'm reducing the cost of lost lives, reducing the cost of taxpayer money going to wrongful death suits, and
Beautiful.
I'm leaning up processes, meaning I'm making it where it's a more standardized process for interacting with law enforcement, specifically for Black people, because Black people are 3 times more likely to be killed during law enforcement interactions than our white counterparts. That's just a fact.
Right. And, you know, I want to pause a moment because within my work in positive psychology, you have just outlined, you mapped so perfectly the activity of being inspired many times by crisis, and then taking your identical skills, the things that you honed and that made your livelihood, you transform them and put them in another space.
Mhm.
And that is something that people do not appreciate, how much the talents they use in their day-to-day jobs can be helping solve the bigger problems that we believe we have in our society. And you're doing it. You show
Absolutely.
exactly how it can be done.
Thank you.
So take us on a little bit of the road. So you
Yep.
had that inspiration
Mhm.
built in that crisis. What
Yeah, that
happened next?
happened. So that happened in 2016. I was very pregnant. I was 7 months pregnant at that point. So I shouldn't say nothing happened 2016 to 2018 because everything is a step. Like
Oh,
everything that
you
you
bet.
witness, everything that you experience is part of the process. But I
Correct.
didn't formally establish the organization until over 2 years later. 2 years later,
Okay.
and that's when I said, okay, so now I'm going to do this. I'm making this an organization. What am I doing? Because you come into a brand new space. I come
Mhm.
from operations, manufacturing. Now I'm in social justice, law enforcement transformations, criminal justice transformation. What am I doing? So I spent the
Right.
whole first year just reading from 2018 to 2019, just reading.
Preparedness cannot be underestimated. You had shared with us a lot of your background in just
Hmm.
casual conversation. You know, your corporate
Yep.
background, upper middle class, clearly educated.
Yep. Yep.
Tell everyone how we met.
Oh yeah, we met by, I guess you can call it happenstance, or you can call it divine interaction. I believe in
Right.
divine, coordination. So I'm in a program right now called Bunker Labs. Bunker Labs Veterans in Residence, the full name. And what it
Mhm.
is, it's military connected, either veterans or military spouses, which I am. I'm a military spouse, active duty
Right.
Air Force wife. And we're all starting our own companies, starting our own businesses, starting our own organizations. And
Yes.
Bunker Labs helps us it's kind of like an incubator. It's to boost
Right.
our business acumen and help us really be successful in this entrepreneurial journey. So I'm in the program with a wonderful guy named Lido.
Yep. Our
And
dear
Lido
Alita,
brought,
who's
yeah,
part of
Lido
my young
introduced me to,
tribe. Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. Lido is amazing. And Lido and I kind of connected very quickly, even on just before we even got in the program, because of his work in suicide prevention. And I'm
Correct.
also in suicide prevention work. So Lido and I hit it off, and then he brought in Dr. Success.
Yes. Well, and that's, you know, I want to again pause for the audience because um, having a mastermind group, and that's what I feel your group is. It is an organized group and it runs against a tight schedule. It runs the exact formula that you can find online on how to run a mastermind group. And with a particular focus of who it is that participates, because you all have a level of empathy. You all experience something, regardless of the color of your skin. And that's military
Mhm.
background or
Yep.
experience with how that informs how you are in the world.
Yes.
Yeah. And I immediately, you know, there wasn't anybody in the room that I wasn't excited about, but there is, when I hear someone who is so well versed in how corporations use techniques as you
Mhm.
were, and what I listened to was how you are using those skills in order to build this organization and solve a huge social problem. That's exactly the kind of thing that makes me happy. So you get to 218. Who's the group that you convinced to join with you? Who's joining in on this understanding? Because your website says
Yeah.
you are a member-led, and please tell everyone your
Organization.
website. Yeah.
So our website is www.one, that's the number one, the letter M as in mom, and the number 4.org, 1m4.org.
And tell everyone what it stands for.
Yeah. So 1M4 is short for 1 million madly motivated moms.
Beautiful.
And every word of that is very much intentional. It's very, very much thought out. And one, we're like, why did you pick 1 million? I say, honestly, when I first started, I thought I needed a ton of people very quickly. And the longer that I'm in the work, I'm like, you really just need a few committed people. You would be amazed by what you can do with a handful of the right people.
Correct.
And then moms, I'm using the motivation of the next generation, protecting the next generation.
Right.
That motivation, we're madly, intensely, passionately motivated to protect our children. So it's
Right.
1 million madly motivated moms, 1M4 for short.
Beautiful. And so who is the team that's come around you?
Mm-hmm. So my team, honestly, are the people who were connected to me over the last nearly 40 years. The people we usually go to first are your closest friends, your family, those who know you, who knew the high school Tansy, the undergrad Tansy, the young intern Tansy, like who knew various versions of you, because they trust you.
Yes.
They know that this person has been with me for the last 20 years. Of course, I'm gonna ride for them. So the first year, like I said, all I did was read. Even my closest friends didn't know what I was doing. They were like, man, Tansy's been very quiet. She says she's doing something. She's building something. All she does is spend a lot of time in the library. I'm like, yeah, that's all I was doing. So a lot of time in the library. And then come 2019, it was like, okay, I'm launching. This is what I'm doing. I'm building a coalition of Black mothers who are coming together to end police violence by the year 2038. And they're like, wait a minute, wait. You were in supply chain like a year ago.
Right.
Was. And I'm still in supply chain type work. I'm protecting the supply of Black people for the future. Unharmed, untraumatized.
The other part of your mission, which I think is incredible, it is, yes, or maybe it's answering the question, how do you do that? One of the ways you do that is to move the talent bar within the social justice system, making sure that there are more people that look like you actually in the system, helping understand how to make the system better. It's not unlike having an Eric Adams, who was a police officer, become a mayor of a city that's having challenges within that system. That
I do have, I have some problems with Eric Adams, but yes, I understand. Yes, the goal is to put people in positions, and I added recently, the last 18 months, I've added the term of people of integrity into positions of power, because we have a lot of people in positions of power right now. And they don't have integrity.
And that's, one of the things I hope everyone hears, you are not part of the coalition who believes that we should be defunding police.
I am part of the coalition that believes we should put resources into the right places.
Right. So it's reallocation of resources.
It's reallocation of resources to prevent crimes.
Correct.
To prevent crimes. Now, yes, we do need people to solve crimes, but my goal is to focus on to completely prevent it. Okay. Like, why do people commit crimes? Prevent it from happening, not just solve it later. So I am very much behind reallocating of funds. I do not use the term defund the police, because there are two groups. People hear that two different ways. Right. And when we get into arguments about semantics, no one's solving the problem, because we're screaming. Yeah. And when you start screaming and people stop listening, we have big issues. So I am about reallocating funds to crime prevention activities, like mental health, like after school programs, like putting just a hospital in the right neighborhood so you don't have to travel an hour to get to the doctor, like that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yes. And I do very much understand, because I'm in that conversation. It's not as though once we build the system, it's done perfectly. We have to constantly be reevaluating as society's changing, as what's the needs of the community? How do we best do this? And how do we best train people in that? Which brings me to another area that I feel you've opened up, and you touched on it with Lido, and suicide prevention, because I know within his work work with vets, and being a vet and someone who is very honest about, the impact that his tours of duty had on him. You're launching into mental health.
I am.
Talk to us about that.
So our organization, we're considered mental health advocates, right? We
Okay.
advocate for those who have diagnosed and undiagnosed mental illness, because it's been proven time and time again through studies that those who have mental illness are not more likely to commit crimes. But they are 25% of police violence deaths are those who are having a mental health emergency. So that's
now,
a
wait a minute.
significant portion of our issue.
So did you just say that people with mental health issues are not more likely to commit
That
crime?
is correct. It has been.
I know that
That's
for
true.
myself, because I know that, I guess, because I'm only thinking about the homeless population and mental illness.
So 1 in 4 people have a serious mental illness. They
Sure.
may be diagnosed or undiagnosed, but
right.
25% of our entire population does.
Right.
So if there are 2 more people on this call, 1 of the 4 of us has a mental illness.
Correct.
But it has been proven by academic research that those that have diagnosed serious mental illness are not more likely to have criminal behavior.
Okay.
That's a fact.
And now give the second step, but they are more likely to have.
They are more likely to be killed during a police
Wow.
officer interaction.
And I know
police
that
officers are not trained to handle mental health de-escalation.
Right. Right.
So our organization, we base our actions off of data. We're very much data driven.
Sure.
And in the law enforcement sphere or industry, or if you want to call it industry, in law enforcement, based on the information that we have, we know that 25% of law enforcement involved deaths or murders are of those who are having a mental health emergency. So 1 in 4 hears that. So in 2020, we're like, what are we going to give to the country? What's our gift to society? What's our gift to the United States? We're like, well, we know that something happened with Elijah McClain in Colorado. Okay, what could have happened differently to have saved Elijah's life? Well, maybe the individual who saw him walking down the street could have called another number other than calling 911 to say, hey, there's someone walking in my neighborhood with a mask on. This was pre-COVID, right?
Right.
Walking in my neighborhood with a mask on. They send law enforcement. Law enforcement approaches him. He's on the spectrum. He's like, I'm okay. Nothing's wrong with me. And then the medics end up coming and injecting him with something. He passes away.
Right.
So what could our organization have done to prevent that? So we started from December of 2020 to July of 2021, and we released a national database of mobile crisis units. That's organizations that are already out in the world who can respond and come to you if there is a mental health emergency, giving people an alternative to calling 911, meaning that either a social worker, a clinician, a medic, and sometimes there are some co-responder models where a law enforcement officer will be involved, but a lot of them are not. And we started out with a list of 34. This is just me and my members on the phone, on email, typing away. We started out with 34 units. We're now over 150 units that are on our website.
Right. And so, that was an observation, because I went through your site and and I saw that mobile crisis. And I thought to myself, wow, if ever there was a reason to have an app, because believe me, I could imagine myself being that person looking out my window, seeing someone, walking down the street with a mask on. And the only thing I would know, my default mode would be to call
911.
Default mode.
We've made 911 the default for everything. And we're learning, we constantly evolve, we change. We're learning that that's not going to work for us. It's not the safest alternative for everyone.
And the way iPhones have, emergency, you can put your SOS things in it. It would make so much sense that that, because I went and looked state by state. That was a very good set of lists. I went to Nevada and, you know, I thought to myself, and you have it broken down for under 18 years old and over 18 years old. Again, many people do not understand that we have a system that sometimes it cuts you out after 18 altogether. Like there may be some systems under 18 and then there's nothing if you're
That's
over
very
18.
true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
I know that we're not the best example of.
Nevada's not. Nevada's not. It's getting better. There's been funding that other groups have gotten, state funded groups and then other community led groups that they're getting the funding now. This based off of American Rescue, it's ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan funds that are just now getting to the community.
Right.
But it's getting better. But any of your listeners, any of your watchers, people who are viewing this, if you see anything about alternative response, mobile crisis response that's popping up right now, you'll see a lot more of it over the next 12 months.
Okay.
They're basing that information off of 1 in 4. We had the only list. Like it was us.
That is
it was a group of moms.
And there's something else you're doing, 988.
Yeah.
Tell us what that is.
Yeah. So 988, so 988 will be the behavioral health alternative to 911. So they're working for 911 to be criminal behavior. Something's being burglarized, or there was an auto accident. You know, it's more auto accidents. They shouldn't be criminal, but they're still in that category where you need a law enforcement response. But now for situations that are a mental health emergency, and suicide prevention is in there as well, they will have 988. But it will start on June 16th of this year, meaning June 16th, wherever you are in the country. If you're having suicidal ideations or you have a family member who's having suicidal ideations, instead of dialing the long phone number that the rapper Logic made popular a couple years ago, the new 3-digit code will be 988, effective July 16th, 2022. And our job as 1 in 4, since we were in the work for alternative responses to mental health response, is to make the Black community and make the marginalized communities aware of this, because most people have not heard of it. And that's by design, is so that they can get the infrastructure built out for 988. But for our communities, particularly communities of color and marginalized communities, it takes us a little while to trust the new system. Right. For obvious reasons. Sure. We've been victimized by some. So we have to kind of hear about it, hear somebody who's been working with it, who knows more about it. We have to kind of listen for a while before we change our behavior.
That's fabulous. Yes. I mean, I can just imagine how much pressure, because that one action will help law enforcement at this point know they need special skills when responding to something also. Like that's ideally already a heads up.
Yeah, ideally for us, for 1 in 4 for our organization, we want to make sure that law enforcement isn't centered in all interactions. We believe that they should be on the criminal side. That criminal behavior just needs a safety response. A health behavior, mental health, suicidal ideation, hallucinations, substance use, type of disorder. I shouldn't say disorder. Some type of issues should have a medical response. Okay. Just like if I were to break my leg or break my arm, I'm going to the doctor. Right. If something is broken up here between my ears, or something is just off a little bit, I need a medical response for a medical issue. Mental health, in our stance, 1 in 4 is a medical issue. Right.
That's incredible. Now, let me see, from everything that I checked on your site, have we covered everything that you want the world to know at this moment?
For the most part. So I didn't, I guess, tell our 3 pillars. I should probably be kind of clear on the 3
pillars,
things.
And then you have to tell how we can help.
Oh, okay. So 1 in 4. So we have this big, hairy, audacious goal, right? The big BHAG everyone has. Like, we're going to end police violence by 2038. And we're doing that through 3 different kind of pillars. The first pillar is we help impacted families, like directly. That's with financial and emotional support. Most of the families that we talk to are not the cases that you hear about in the news cycle. We purposely go out looking for those that are a lot less known, because we're looking for trends. We're looking for, is this happening this type of way in most communities? Like, well, how can we prevent this type of death and tragedy or trauma from happening. So we help emotional and financial support to impacted families directly. That's a check to the family.
Okay.
And also we check in on them once or twice a month to see how we can amplify their cases and support their cases.
Wow.
Second is we provide legislative policy education. So most people don't realize how closely knit politics are to law enforcement.
To everything.
Politics, everything. Yeah, but very much so to law enforcement and the laws that are passed, how they impact the community. So educating on different laws that are coming, either that are here at the federal level or at the state levels.
Mhm.
And then lastly, we're raising our children with integrity to seek out roles and have interest in roles in the justice system and politics. Because we believe that in order to have a sustainable solution, you have to put people in place, people in roles that have integrity,
Right.
to protect the people that they were voted in to serve, and not just large corporations. So it's those three pillars. And we're in the mental. I know.
Just those three. Oh, please.
I know.
Tansy, what you're dealing with is a grave situation. We know that, if any, unless you've really been living under a rock. And I one of the things I heard you say when we met was that, you are hoping that the initial flash of impact and response because of George Floyd does not diminish. And that I've heard that fear echoed in many, many places. And what I want to say is that it is in the work that you're doing and in constantly talking about it and having websites and being very specific of the actions that people can do. I may be a Pollyanna on this. I don't think we're going to get away with sweeping this crap under the rug anymore. As painful as it is, that line about there are human problems that need human solutions, and you are a human really working at creating those solutions. And I personally want to thank you. So I will make sure that all of your information is in the description when this goes live. I want to thank you, Tansy, for the work that you're doing. And I look forward to that goal being achieved long before.
Thank you. I hope so.
Yes.
I hope so.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
So thank you. And thank everyone for listening. Please get involved at your local level. Please look at the website. And remember, coming here, getting information, share it. The more we can have good information spread around, the more good can happen. So thank you. And thanks again.
Thank you.